Hello, Year 10. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed Trinity half term and had a very restful, relaxing week. Your first task back this week is to create a sculpture or a 3D development of your drawing of a derelict space that you did before we went away on half term. Now, we've recommended you do this with cardboard, and I wanted to go through the task with you, but also to provide some practical tips on how to work with cardboard. So I'm going to begin quickly by showing you the Satch1 page. Let me just open that up here. Okay, so as usual, we've provided a very clear description of what you should be doing this week on Satchel 1. You should read that from beginning to end, and if you don't understand it, you should read it again a couple of times before reaching out to your teacher for clarification. You should also have a look at some of the examples that we've provided. Here's one. Okay, this takes the form of a set, which is how you might want to interpret your 3D sculpture of a derelict space. And here is another example made by a member of staff. Hopefully I can open it. There it is. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit. And a little bit more zoomed in view of that, where you can see some of the texture. So there are examples there for you to look at and plenty of ideas that you can use as a springboard for your own response. But beyond that, we haven't given you much practical advice on how to work with cardboard. So that's what this little video is just going to be about. It's just me going to go through a few of my practical tips for working with cardboard. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm actually going to angle my camera down a little bit. So this is my little workspace where I normally make things. I'm going to get my mouse out of the way. Put that over there. Okay, and I'm going to get some cardboard out and show you what to do with it. So a bit of a mess here. Let me get this out of the way first. Okay, so this is what you will probably all be working with. We have something like this from Amazon or something similar. Okay, and the best sort of cardboard that you want, okay, is actually the sort that's got a little bit of thickness to it, like this. Hopefully you can see that edge. That's what you want, because that will allow you to create texture later on. The best way to cut this sort of cardboard is not actually with scissors, it's actually with a knife. So the best sort of knife I recommend getting is this one here. You can get these off Amazon really easily. Obviously, you might want to ask your parents to help you sort that out. You can also buy them at shops, although if you're a young person, often you need ID to get them. What's great about these sorts of knives is not only can you snap off the end of the blade to kind of like get down to the sharper areas, but also you can lock the blade in position like this. And that means that when you're using the blade, it won't move and slide around and provide an unstable sort of like experience. So these are the best sort of knives I recommend getting. But if you haven't got a knife like this, another thing you can do is you can just use anything sharp. I've got a pencil here, okay, and if I grab myself my ruler, where's my ruler gone? Oh boy. Okay, so what you can do is you can just score the surface of the cardboard. I need to use something like just a knife or a fork from the kitchen to avoid breaking your nicely sharpened pencil. I'm using just an etching tool here. And you score along the surface of the card a bit like that, and then what you should be able to do is just bend it like that. And as long as you put the pressure in the right place, the card should bend along that rip and snap. Now you can use that to, if you were to score the other side and do the same thing, you could probably just like rip it off, or you could just, use that as a corner. So scoring is something that's worth bearing in mind. You don't need to cut everything. You can just get something into a manageable shape and then score it and use that as the basis for your sculpture. So that's the first piece of advice. The first piece of advice I'll give you. The next thing I want to talk about really is how to attach and stick together pieces of cardboard. Now, the best solution, if you can get hold of one, is one of these. This is a hot glue gun, and you get these little glue sticks that you put in the end of them, okay? Once you put one of these glue sticks in, don't take them out like I have, because once they get into this heated element here, they'll start to melt, and pulling it out will often kind of break the mechanism of the glue gun. But you know, until they get to that heated butt, they're fine just to stay in there. And as you can see, the little trigger pulls the glue stick through the heated element, and it melts it, turns into a liquid, and that means you can use it. And this is the best way of attaching two pieces of cardboard to each other. So a little blob of cardboard here, a little bit of glue, sorry, on this cardboard here, and I can just put that on there. And I just leave it or hold it in position if necessary for 30 seconds or so. You always do need to hold it in position. Then once you've held it in position for a while, it attaches pretty well and pretty strongly, like that. You'll notice that I've got my glue gun resting on a piece of cardboard, because when these things get really hot, as you can see just here, they kind of drip. And so if you've got them on like one of your parents' nice books or like tabletop, it will really annoy them. So make sure you've got your hot glue gun, if you have one, resting on a piece of scrap cardboard to stop it from damaging other things. But what if you don't have a piece of equipment like this, okay? By the way, these aren't that expensive, so you could just grab one off Amazon. But if you can't do that, what can you do? Well, let me show you. There are a few different options available to you, but I'm going to tell you what I wouldn't advise. I wouldn't actually bother using PVA or Pritt stick unless you're really, really stuck. These are like your last resort, because they're not that strong as adhesives. Also, something which I would tell you, normal masking tape, the sort that we use at school, that's kind of got this papery finish to it, it's probably not going to work that well at a cardboard sculpture. But if you absolutely have to make them work, you can do, especially if you're using things like a hairdryer to dry the PVA, or if you're really clever about how you smooth the paper down onto the tape down onto the cardboard, you can make it work, but it's just a bit more challenging. So the best ways of sticking cardboard to cardboard other than glue stick are as follows. Gaffer tape. Now you only need a tiny little bit of gaffer tape, which is good because it's quite expensive, and also you don't often want that metallic sort of look in your work, but it's really sticky, and it works really well. The best way I found is to actually stick a little bit of gaffer tape to a surface like this. This is a cutting mat that I use, and then you can use a knife to cut tape on the board like this, and that will allow you to peel it into smaller pieces, because normally you can just rip gaffer tape like this. If I just get the corner of it, oh boy, well, for some reason this doesn't want to, there we go. So normally you kind of peel like this, and then you can actually rip it if you get it at the right angle, like that. But you have to be kind of, it's like tearing off a band-aid or plaster. You have to be very quick with it, and then once you've got it in your fingers, it's like, oh, it's kind of sticky, it gets stuck to everything, and it's a bit of a pain in the bum. So the best way to do it, I found, is to rip off a decent sized piece, probably bigger than you're going to need, stick it down, and then use a knife like this to slice it up into smaller pieces. You can then use the knife to peel up the edge like that, get it with your finger. Then it's a much more manageable size piece, just like a little piece like this. If it'll focus. There we go. It's a tiny little piece really, isn't it? So from that point, you can take two pieces like this. You can stick your bit of gaffer tape just on the very edge of your cardboard like that, and then you can kind of place it down. So because of this kind of flat bottom of the cardboard, like, that will kind of stay where it is, but it's not very strong, and it has a tendency just to do this. You know, it won't go that way, but it will go that way. So we can fix that by doing a little brace on the back. So this is a little bit more fiddly, but I think it's really worth doing. Again, I'm just going to peel up a couple of pieces of my pre-sliced tape here. One. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, this might seem a bit fiddly, but I'm going to put a little bit of tape on there, like that. And I'm just going to put this on the back at the bottom, like that. And I'm going to put one more little bit of tape here. Just fold that up. Okay, and I'm just going to use, you know, now it's not the strongest thing in the world, but it's more stable than it was, because it won't go this way now or that way. You wouldn't want to put like a lot of weight on it, but it's not just going to fall over at any minute. So that's always worth doing, just like bracing the back of any piece of cardboard you can stick up. So what if you don't have glue gun or tape? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. Firstly, you can actually use needle and thread. Just cut out a fresh piece of cardboard. So this isn't particularly good for sticking together pieces like this, but it does work well for sticking pieces together like this. So basically you hold the two pieces of card together, you get your needle and thread that you can buy from any kind of Sainsbury's or whatever, and you push it through both, kind of like this. Just be really careful not to poke yourself on the finger. And the same thing, you pull it through like almost all the way, like that. Okay, and then you want to push it back through like this. Just again, be super careful not to poke yourself in the finger here, because it can be really painful. Pull that through. Okay, and then if you wanted, you could just tie it off at this end. So not the best at needlecraft, but I'll do my best here. Just tie off a little knot. Some of you might be quite good at needle and thread or embroidery anyway, just from sort of like fiddling around with your own clothes. So this could be a good opportunity for you to use those skills. Excuse me sniffing. Hay fever. Right, there we go. Now, it's not the strongest join, but these two pieces are now sticking together. So if you need to attach two pieces of paper together and you don't have any glue or gaffer tape, that's one option. There is one other option, which I find really fun and interesting. Again, this is for anybody that doesn't have any glue that's strong enough at all. I'm going to show you two bits of card here. So these are two pieces of card that I have cut into, and as you can see, I've cut two slots in them that are roughly the same thickness as the card themselves. So the thickness of the slot matches the thickness of the card. This only really works with thicker cards. If you've got really, really thin stuff, this probably won't work. And what you can do is, you can just slot these two pieces of cards together like that. And it works quite well. So those are my methods for sticking pieces of card together. I hope you found something in there that's useful for you. I've got one last thing to talk about before I let you go today, and that is the texture of cardboard. You'll notice if you've ever ripped one of these boxes that you get these really nice textures on the card like this, where the layers of the cardboard become exposed and this bumpy corrugated effect in here is exposed. That's really good. But how can you use this to your advantage? Well, I've got a little sneaky technique I want to show you. Firstly, you can just easily grab a piece of cardboard like this and you can just get the very edge of it like that, especially where you've got that nice corrugated edge, and you can just peel it back. And this ripping sort of thing can be really nice, you know, just to kind of add a little bit of texture to whatever you're doing. You can even stick, you know, bits of this back on like that to create another texture. So you can do that just by hand, just to sort of weather things and age them. But if you wanted to be a bit clever, a bit of a clever clogs, which a lot of you are, you're going to want to just score very lightly into the surface of it like this. And then when you peel away that layer of the corrugated cards, you leave yourself a much kind of neater, more controlled design. So that could be a really fun kind of technique to create some feature or interest in your sculpture. Right, I think that's everything that I wanted to say today, so I can put my camera back up. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you got something from that, and we're really looking forward to seeing your sculptures at the end of the week on Friday. Meeting done.